Okay, I'm going to call this meeting back to order. So we're now back into the regular meeting. We have Councilor Jelks has joined us. I don't think any other city councilors coming after I took the original roll call. So do I have a motion to approve the minutes of May 28th, 2019?
So moved.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Yeah, that passes. Item number 1, which is item number 12 of June 17th, 2019, resolution regarding capital project budget for fiscal year 2020. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. Okay. This is the first resolution which deals with approving the bonding for the capital improvement projects that were previously approved by the City Council. Ordinarily, this is just a quick up, down, you vote for it because we've already approved these projects. But given the public comment tonight, I just want to say a couple things. One is the City Council has been very responsible with the amount of bonding that it does every year. I would say 14 years ago, something like that, there was a resolution introduced that said the city will only be able to bond 50% of the principal it pays down in the prior year. And the City Council since that time through the present has adhered to that policy, and that has dropped us all the way down to each year we are now borrowing about $3.5 million for our capital improvement projects. The goal of that not only was to control bonding, but it was specifically to make room for projects like the high schools, like the library, like in the future probably Thomas Hooker Middle School. That's the very purpose, is to make room for those investments in the community that we know need to be made and to do it in a responsible way. One of the things that we do every year is about $1.5 million of roads and sidewalks. You know, so people say they don't want their roads plowed and they don't want their sidewalks fixed. That's fine, but I don't think that's what the community wants. It's not healthy. It's not what it needs. When people say only spend what you have, basically you're saying pay cash. Whether you call it bonding or borrowing, and Councilor Shamek's in the real estate business, I don't know that many people that show up and buy their house cash or go to a car dealership and buy their car cash. We take out a mortgage, we take out a car loan. These are investments in our present and in our future, and we pay it down over time, and it allows us to do that. And so this is something we do every year. No one has ever gotten up and said we shouldn't bond for the roads and sidewalks or the $3.5 million that we do. So I just want to put that caveat on that. I don't know, Mr. Lopez, because you have anything else to add? These are just the previously approved capital improvement projects, correct? Okay. So we have a first and a second. Councilor Burnett.
Question. You just said that we generally go at $3.5 million. This one here is $15.3 million.
Yeah, this, and Mr. Lepkus can tell me if I'm wrong, these were all previously approved in prior years within the bonding cap, but we don't borrow until the project's ready to go. So this is not a single year's worth of capital improvement projects. This is multiple years. Is that correct, Mr. Lepkus?
No. Actually, the amount that's on here, the request today, all the other prior year's capital projects that have been approved by council have been authorized for borrowing. This is strictly the authorization for borrowing for the 2020 capital plan. The reason that it's more than the $3.5 million is you have certain things that are exempt from it. The Board of Education is exempt. The enterprise funds do not fall under that cap. The drainage does not fall under that, what's it, about $4 million, I believe it is? $3.5 million cap. So that's the reason why this is not at the $3 million. But this is strictly what was adopted by council 2 months ago.
Okay, thank you. I was thinking the different chart you had given me. Go ahead, Councilor Burnett.
Also, we stated at that time we were almost $300,000 up against the bonding cap. Is that correct?
The capital plan that was adopted was $57,000
Yeah,
under
close.
the cap at that point.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, so that's taken care of. Moving on now to item number 10 of July 1, 2019, which is the resolution regarding the library expansion option. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Okay. So there's a motion and a second. I'd like to do one thing because there was a request which I think was appropriate, to amend this resolution to add an additional whereas clause. So I'd like to get that out of the way first. We wanted to have a whereas in there, and this came at Councilor Jelk's suggestion, that we also indicate that the city itself is going to continue during the process to explore options for additional grants and additional funding. And Mr. City Manager, you have the language. Can you just read that, please?
Yes, the language reads as such. Whereas the city manager and staff of the City of Meriden will endeavor to obtain any and all applicable private and federal grant funds available to aid in the expansion and renovation of the Meriden Public Library. And
So it's one more additional whereas clause with that language. Do I have a motion to amend the current resolution to add that whereas clause?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor of the amendment? Aye. Any opposed? All right, so we now have the resolution as amended with that additional whereas clause language in there. What I'd like to do is, in light of the public comment, which I thought was very informative and very helpful, I'd like to stay on that theme. We have a number of people here that are here to talk about the current state of the library, the needs of it, and the different benefits of the library. So if we can do them first, then that may answer a lot of questions people have. At the end of that, we can have the architect then make the presentation, and then the floor will be completely wide open to questions of anybody. So I'd like to first start with Joan Edgerly. Carm Trotta, it was mentioned earlier that there's the Library Building Review Committee has been working for the last 2 years, visiting libraries, doing the study, working with architects, having public hearings, and so on and so forth, and I'm sure that'll be covered. Carm Trotta was the chair of that committee. An annual report was filed last year. The committee was charged with making a recommendation, so there's not an annual report this year. The recommendation came in. Unfortunately, he's out of state and unable to make this meeting, but I know he's asked Joan Edgerly to come and speak on his behalf. So, Joan, why don't you go ahead?
Oh, sorry, thought I was on. I would like to thank the council for this opportunity. I think most of you know me. The library was my profession and is still definitely my passion. And I am the vice chair of the renovation committee. And so I have a statement from Carm Trotta, who is the chair, which he has asked if I would read to you. Finance committee members, city councilors, Mr. Mayor, and city manager. I apologize that as chairman of the LBRC, I can't be there to speak to you personally, but I am on a vacation that was planned over 2 years ago, and I could not change my plans. I have asked Vice Chairperson Joan Edgerly to present it for me. I have always been proud of my hometown, Meriden, and all it has to offer. The Meriden Public Library for many years has topped the list of why that pride exists. When the present library opened in 1973, my wife joined the staff and worked there for over 32 years. It became part of our lives. When she retired as library director in 2005, it was as if we were losing part of our family. While she was working there, I took an active part in her interest in promoting libraries in general. I attended a governor's conference on libraries, and in July of 1991, I represented Meriden at the White House Conference on Libraries in Washington, D.C. During that meeting, I was asked to become a member of the White House Conference on Libraries and Information Services Task Force. I served as national chairman for 6 years. I traveled all over the country promoting libraries and visiting scores of facilities. I was in awe of many, but always knew that Meriden's library topped my list of what a library should be. Over the years, my feelings never changed, but I was starting to see the building needing help. In 2016, when the council wisely decided to put together a library building review committee, I wanted to be part of it. I appreciated the appointment and was humbled to be chosen chairman. I feel that from the committee's first meeting in February 2017 until we voted for the recommended option last month, we put our heart and soul into the charge given to us. We developed a plan of how we would proceed. We first made each member of our committee familiar with the library itself by touring it, asking questions, and discussing options. We looked at what recommendations were suggested but tabled 15 years ago when that recommendation had a price tag of $15,000, and I was president at that time, and we did decide that that was definitely over the top. We were also fortunate that the library trustees were doing a strategic plan for the next 3 years. They worked with a consultant that showed us trends in renovations and expansion. The procedure gave us valuable information that was garnered with the use of surveys, focus groups, and a town meeting. With this collection of knowledge, we were able to develop a list of what the citizens of Meriden, and we as well, thought was needed in our library. Our next step was to visit 7 libraries which had undergone renovations and/or expansions in the last few years. These visits confirmed what Meriden was asking for was similar to other communities. It also gave us ideas so that when we were ready to meet with architects, we would be able to accentuate positives and stay away from any possible negatives. It wasn't necessary to reinvent the wheel, but just to make sure it ran smoothly. Additional calls to other library directors who were just starting their plans gave us confidence that we were headed in the right direction. By making our visits, we were able to see the work of a number of architects and architectural firms. This was important information that gave us an idea of what we could expect when checking qualifications and requesting proposals. The firm we chose is TSKP of Hartford. They did the most recent renovation of the Hartford Public Library. Their work with us so far has been very positive, and we feel that they are listening to our needs, wants, and concerns. They submitted 3 possible options to the committee, all based on our discussions and all attempting to handle the community response. We had some firms say that renovations could be in the $25 million category. Others wouldn't commit, but felt that the $15 million figure wasn't out of line. We made some preliminary decisions to save monies in a few areas and keep the project to a manageable level while still making the renovations and expansion meet our goals. We feel our choice of expansion and partial renovation is by far the best. The goals it achieves are that it expands and brightens the children's room to square footage recommended for a community of our size, gives us a much-needed teen area that will allow teens programs not before offered, and provides for much-needed multipurpose areas. The greatest example is a 9,000 square foot expansion that will provide a large meeting area that can be used when the library is closed because of a separate entrance, yet still gives the library the needed room while it is in operation. The option we suggest also gives us a new front and rear entrance. The entrances are aligned, creating a nice bright corridor, allowing for better security of the building. The other options show no expansion of additional space, just of departments. So when you give those programs minimal growth, you are taking away others. You are robbing Peter to pay Paul and are gaining nothing. All bathrooms in the facility will be renovated within our recommendation. We strongly feel that this option answers the needs expressed by the public, gives us the best value for our dollar, and will bring us into the future not only with great programs already provided by the library, but with a facility we can be proud of for many years to come. A pride not only like I have had, but one that all of Meriden deserves. And this says, thank you for your support, Carm Trotta, Chairman of the LBRC. And I would just like to add a statement or two to what Carm had to say. One of the best returns on your tax dollar is the unlimited use of the library. We provide adult and children's programs, access to books, magazines, CDs, DVDs, use of computers, and much more. Perhaps the best part of it is that it is free and a safe place for people to go. Not only is our staff knowledgeable, but they are friendly, outgoing, and always willing to help. There comes a time when renovations and updating are necessary. Please recognize that the time for our facility is now. I implore you to vote yes for the option that the renovation committee has recommended. And I also have brought with me a copy of Carm Trotta's message to all of you, as well as copies of the calendars that we put out each month. We have one that is for adults, and then we have one that is for the children's library. And I'm going to leave them here, so at the end of the meeting, if you would like a copy of these, please feel free to come. I think I've made enough for everyone to come up and to take one. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'd next like to go to Karen Rosler, who's still the director? No. Well, yes, still the director of the Meriden Public Library.
Yes, but very critical days. I don't want to repeat a lot of what's been said before, but maybe some emphasis will help answer some of the counselors' questions. As was reported by Joan in Carm Trotta's report, the Library Board of Trustees, with some city support, hired an architect in 2005 to develop a library building program and schematics for a much-needed major renovation of the library. At that time, project cost estimates of over $15 million essentially killed discussions for moving forward with the plan. When I became director in 2008, I began considering how library renovation could be achieved, being mindful of the city's overall obligations and needs. In 2010, 10 years ago, and every year since, I have included a library renovation project in my CIP requests, initially with a fiscal year 2016 target date for funding. Many of you will remember discussions during those budget reviews. Most members, as well as the former city manager, agreed that it wasn't a question of if a renovation was needed, but rather of when and how much. Former city manager Larry Kenzie and I agreed that a building review committee consisting of city councilors, library board trustees members, and the general public would be the best way to proceed in a city project like this. It would allow for the expression of different points of views and ensure good lines of communication between different stakeholders. So in fiscal year 2016, seed money for the Library Building Review Committee was appropriated, and as Carm Trotta's report noted, the committee was appointed a year later and has worked diligently to find the right architect who would work to develop plans that meet Meriden's needs. As a library manager with 44 years of experience, with over 21 years of them working in Meriden, as a resident of the city and an ex officio member of the Library Building Review Committee, I wholeheartedly support the recommended plans for the renovation of the library as presented to you this evening. From my experience, I can say that if the resolution before you this evening is approved by you and the City Council, the city will have a library that can serve the community well into the 21st century. Will it give us everything that I and some others want or would love to see? Honestly, no. This is a reasonable and realistic proposal. It will, however, provide us with what we need, including these benefits. It will provide a comfortably spacious children's library that has spaces conducive to the various stages of learning development that can support our community's efforts to ensure school success. It will provide an inviting and interactive area for teens that is separated but still visible to staff to keep our adolescents busy in a fun, safe, and learning-rich environment. It will provide spaces for small, medium, or large group meetings that can facilitate tutoring programs for students of all ages, meeting spaces for small businesses and nonprofits, and a neutral space for community planning, collaboration, problem solving, and informational programming. With an addition, as presented in this proposal, the main meeting space will be designed for multiple uses and will be accessible directly from the outside. This will allow use when the rest of the library is closed. In addition, the library users often request a place to eat a sandwich or a snack after or in the middle or after, before, or in the middle of using the library. Currently, food is not allowed in the main library areas. So although the word cafe is used here, our vision of that space would be a tiled area with some tables where, and perhaps someday with some vending machines, but initially just a place where people could sit with a book, eat their sandwich that they brought in, or have a snack and enjoy a cup of coffee. This proposal will also provide spaces properly designed for collecting, organizing, and preserving special collections that will allow us to protect for ourselves and future generations important local and general historical resources. This is very important to me, and I think it should be to the community. And I'm specifically referring to our local history collection and the newly acquired and endowed World War II Holocaust collection. By incorporating an addition to the renovation, as is being proposed, the library will not have to lose a significant part of our physical collection, which would be lost if we use the existing footprint. And by keeping a regular public services on one floor, there will be more efficient use of staff. Several people have mentioned the use of the Augusta Curtis Cultural Center building as a way to provide the library with more meeting room space or a space for teens or children. While the Curtis building could serve us well as a temporary space during renovation, splitting up services between two locations would be much less efficient for staffing and less convenient for our users, who often participate in more than one of our services in any one visit. While certainly critical and essential services, the library is used by more people than attend our schools or who personally are served by our public safety departments. The library supports an informed citizenry and reflects the quality of life in our community. The Meriden Public Library needs to reflect our revitalized vision of Meriden as a vibrant, thriving, and continually evolving city. And the presented proposal, I feel, will accomplish this goal.
Thank you, Karen. One of the things about the library that I don't think a lot of people know is the partnership that the library currently has with the Board of Education in the city of Meriden. And so I asked the Board of Education if they could come over and inform us and the public about what our relationship with them is and what the impact of the renovations would be. I know the superintendent wanted to be here tonight, but he had a scheduling commitment, but we have Assistant Superintendents Cardona and Grove with us tonight, and I'm going to turn the floor over to the two of you.
Thank you. Thank you. I am Mike Grove, Assistant Superintendent for Technology and Operations. Dr. Cardona and I are here tonight because Board President Mark Hughes and Superintendent Dr. Benini are both out of town today and could not make it. We are here to give our support for the library upgrades. For the last 9 years, I've been involved in the school building committee projects for building 2 new high schools. And both of them have allowed us to make upgrades to our schools for our students so that to keep them, the learning environments built for them for the 21st century. We have state-of-the-art high schools right now. In addition to our high schools, we continue to look at upgrading our learning spaces in all our schools. And what you can see by the pictures, students learn in different ways. No more rows, no more really seating and desks, more flexible seating. You'll see in the bottom right, that's one of our libraries, an upgrade of one of our libraries we do now, taking our spaces. Students are looking for different environments than just plain books. They're looking for flexible seatings, ways to collaborate, and this library upgrades will allow our students after school hours to meet those needs. Dr. Cardona is here to talk about our partnerships.
Thank you, Mike, and thank you again for the invitation. Really honored to be here, not only as Assistant Superintendent for our school system, but as a lifelong Meriden resident, a taxpayer, and a parent of 2 children who regularly access the Meriden Public Library. Like Mike Grove said, we're here to support the Meriden Public Library and show that it's a critical part of any thriving community. So partnerships for us is nothing new. We partner with many different agencies, both in and out of Meriden, and we found that we can't do our work in a silo. The Meriden Public Library is a strong partner also for our kids, our students. Well, I won't go into everything in tremendous detail. I do want to acknowledge and thank Karen for your years of service. Congratulations on your retirement. Wish you the best. Under Karen and Joan's leadership, we've been able to partner in many different ways. We recognize that the Meriden Public Library should and can serve as the hub of the community. For many people, it's the only way they can access technology for not just Google, as was mentioned earlier, but for job searches. The Meriden Public Schools is the largest employer in Meriden. We have over 1,000 employees. We don't accept one paper application. So when we're talking about access to technology to level the playing field, for many residents in Meriden, that's their only option. And, these folks are looking for employment to, again, add to the tax base. The Meriden Public Library has offered programming for our youth in STEM programming, in culinary arts, and in other, not only just literacy programs, but in other different areas. My kids have participated and benefited from it. It's really more than books. And we recognize that accessing technology is really the currency of communication nowadays, not only for children, but for adults as well. A thriving library can attract people to it. It can really serve as the heart of the community. It's not, technology is no longer a luxury. It's really the needed for folks to go about their daily business. And as I said earlier, for many people in Meriden, the Meriden Public Library serves as that place. You'll see we've gone pretty much one-to-one in our school system in terms of technology and access to programming. And I want to reiterate the fact that the technology is not a luxury. It's not something additional. It's not fun when you're done with your work. It really is part of our core programming. There's very little that we do in our school system that doesn't include technology or access to the internet for resources. So when our students leave our schools, they go to their homes. Many of them are fortunate to have technology in their home and access to the internet. While others, even though they might have a phone, they might be on a data plan, which is extremely expensive, or have limited minutes. Many students rely on the technology that's provided in the labs at the Meriden Public Library. It's not. This could be a picture taken in the Meriden Public Library, or it could be in one of our schools. This happens to be in one of our schools where students have access to both books and technology when working collaboratively on projects. As I mentioned earlier, technology is not a luxury. It's really part of our core programming. These are just some examples of the digital partners and digital tools that we use in our classroom for students to access their core learning. So while the teacher is working with a small group of students, differentiating, given their skills, the students might be working in a different area on these programs. Now, these programs could also be accessed online at the Meriden Public Library. So if a student is working on ST Math, he or she can access their account at the Meriden Public Library. Some students could do that at their home. Some students cannot. So we want you to understand that it provides an extension of learning for students. And as was mentioned a couple times and implied upon even more, a vibrant library can really open up access to foundation partnerships for accessing new funds to not only support the development or the operating of the library or the building of it, but also it would attract new dollars to the city of Meriden potentially, much like we've found with the Meriden Public Schools. These are just some of the foundation partners that we have that have helped us serve our mission in Meriden. We've even contributed to a piece how the foundations have really come in to aid and support our mission of helping children succeed. And at the end of the day, that's what this is about. This is about the children of Meriden doing better, having greater opportunities for success, not only in our schools, but in the Meriden Public Library and in the community. I feel very strongly, and I'm glad to see the Economic Development Director here, a good education is the best lever for economic development, right? And we have had success over the last several years, and part of that is because we've relied very heavily on the Meriden Public Library, whether it's tutoring programs where Meriden Public School students could go to the library to get tutoring at no cost on curriculum that is being taught in our schools, or other different programs. We know our success is not in a silo. It's because of the partnerships that we have, and one of the important partnerships that we have is the Meriden Public Library. So in closing, I just wanted to kind of reiterate that a vibrant library serves not just as a place for books, but a place where members of a community can grow. Libraries are not in the book business anymore. They're in the people development business, whether that's books or technology or different groups or leadership forums. A lot of people in Meriden go there for their own professional development, not only kids, but adults too, getting a resume together or helping with interviews or different programming. So it really is a place, the people development business. I would be really proud to see the expansion of the partnership between the Meriden Public Schools and the Meriden Public Library continue in the future, as the library can serve as a major investment in Meriden's continued growth. So thank you for the chance to speak.
I really appreciate the Board of Education taking the time to come tonight and provide that information. Springboarding off your comment about the Economic Development Director, we do have Joe Fest here tonight, the city's new Economic Development Director. And again, one of the aspects of the libraries nowadays is an economic driver component of it. And so we've asked Joe to come here and just speak on that. So Joe, the floor is yours, and welcome aboard.
Thank you very much, and to all the council, and thank you for the kind words from the Board of Education. Although you've stolen a little bit of my thunder on some of the points that I was going to make, I will keep it brief because a lot of things have already been mentioned. But some people do wonder what the economic advantages are of having a strong library. One of the key factors was just mentioned, and I'll key off with this in the beginning. Many of the job applications, including the one that I did for myself for this position, can't be done on an iPhone. You actually have to have it on a regular computer. And one of the nice things that I was looking at here in our expansions is the space for people who do not have access to all of the electronics. You might have a cell phone, but you might not have a home computer or might not have a Wi-Fi. You can go down to the library and take advantage of that. And what I see and hope that people will continue to do, and will have access to more computers down there, is to fill out job applications. They also have to fill out their health insurance forms for their new jobs, returning those forms during the years for open enrollment and other services that employers do have time after work where they will set up, the companies will come in and set up a computer there, the larger corporations, but some of the smaller ones don't have the capability of having computer hours after work for their employees who might not have one at home to fill out all these important things for health insurance and 401s and all of the other ancillary products that are offered to them from their employer. They can, after they've done whatever they might have to do with their children at night, and after the hours of settling them all in, they can go down to the library and take advantage of the systems that are there. When you look at the economic impact, people who do look around for homes, they do look to see what the library's advantages are. And one of the main ones is the children's section. If it's a new family, and these are the people that we want to bring into the city of Meriden, the new families with young children, we have invested heavily in our educational system. It is top-notch. When we bring in new people, one of the things they're looking for, the younger group, what can I do with my children who are not in the school system? And our library's done an excellent job with the programs to do this, but with this advantage here in the addition, we're going to have more space to do more programs that will help entertain the children and keep them active. One of the key words in my arena is makerspace. And you might go for a minute, what's a makerspace? Well, a makerspace is for startup companies who might not have all the money to buy all the equipment they need, but they have an idea and they want to start a business. Well, one of the things, if you look into the program, there'll be a 3D printer. That's an expensive investment for an individual company to come in and make right off the bat. If they can utilize the one at the library, and that we have graphic computers and other things that will help them start their business at a low cost, build it up, get contracts, start generating income, then turn around and start renting a space in another larger building somewhere in town, then turn around and now they're on our tax rolls with personal property because now they've created their business, they got it up and running at a low cost, now they're making money, now they can go out and buy this equipment themselves and put it into their business. And we then in turn get the advantage of the tax return that they're filing. So one of the other parts is if you look at all the money that we've spent downtown and the apartments that we're putting in and the millennials that we're trying to attract to come into town, the spaces that we are opening for meeting rooms, I like the idea that we're actually having a separate entrance because then we could cut down and close the downstairs. And many of our groups in town, I'm a member of quite a few, it's hard to find a place to have a meeting, especially after hours. So this will help out many businesses that do not have a corporate boardroom but want to come in and meet with a vendor and want to do it in a professional setting, the new library upstairs will give them the opportunity to do that. And I think that's another advantage that we're looking at here, and the public stated earlier some of the other economic advantages for us, and we strongly support the library. So.
Thank you, Joe. There were comments about the Friends of the Library in public comment. There's been discussions about them all along, so I had asked also Frank Ridley to come and talk about the current status of the Friends of the Library, its current fiscal situation, and how the Friends of the Library, it's in this resolution, they're referenced here, how they plan to help out with any renovation that's approved and what they see their role is. So Frank, thank you for coming tonight. You're president of the Meriden Friends of the Library, and so I'm turning the floor over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There we go. Is that on now? Okay. First, let me speak to a couple of items that were mentioned in public comment. The Friends of the Library over the past 35 years has given over $250,000 to the library. That's money that we raised and money that we secured through grants. Second, it was mentioned that we should probably be in a downtown location. We have been in a downtown location in the past, but every dollar we had to spend on the location for rent, utilities, etc., was a dollar that we not give to the library. So that is counterproductive for us to be in another location. The third comment that was made is that the Friends have not stepped up with their treasury to help out the library. That's just false, totally false. When the Friends have already set aside a fund that has approximately $45,000 in it, it's in a foundation, which is secure for library building and renovation. That's what it's there for. A little over 2 years ago, when the building committee was established, we knew that we would have to do some fundraising. And so as one of the first steps in doing that, I went out and started talking to a few groups. And the comments I got was, well, yeah, so what are you going to do? Well, we didn't know. We didn't know what the plans were going to look like or anything like that. And they basically said, well, come back and talk to us when you know what you're doing. And that's where we're going to be after the council makes their decisions. But even during that time, we knew that we could do some fundraising. And what we did was event-type fundraising. We've done dinners. We had a mini golf tournament in the library this couple of weeks ago and things along those lines. So we've been doing that sort of thing. Going forward into the future, we will actually do a capital campaign. We are in the process right now of developing a list of foundations, service groups, individuals in the community that we know that we can go to for donations, and any other source of businesses or whatever that we can get gifts from. We will begin doing that once we have the schematics and some kind of flyer that we can put together to actually present to these people. We will be asking for specific amounts in the gifts and all that sort of thing, which we could not do before because, again, we did not know what we were doing. We were also working with the library developing naming opportunities. There's a library that just had some renovations elsewhere in the state that literally has everything named. There's a name on the back of every chair, for example. Okay? That's an opportunity to raise funds. And where we will end up with that, we don't know at this point, but that's something that we will be meeting with the library on and the committee that we already have established. On July 18th, we will begin to put all that together. We have a donation box that has been traveling around with us whenever we go to community events, and we'll be doing a lot more of that. That box is now permanently affixed in the library for people to make donations to anytime they want to use the library, whatever. And we will have another box that will travel with us as we go to events, again, to raise funds. Beginning in September, I will begin going out and speaking again to service groups, foundations, and whatnot, asking for their donations. And finally, we will use all forms of social media to solicit funds.
And it's my understanding, Frank, obviously, that all that's going to be coordinated, with the city manager's office, and so
Correct.
This is not, this is going to be a well-coordinated, well-staffed effort.
Correct.
Before I turn it over to the architects, I'm just going to pass it to City Manager Kuhn to get any additional comments he wants to add on. and then I think we can go to the architect to explain the three options that were considered in the context of everything we've heard tonight. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Councilor Daniels. My principal focus for my comments tonight are regarding the financial footing this project would have, or financial effect this project would have on the city. Right now, the city is in a very strong financial footing, as evidenced by its bond ratings. This project will have little or no effect to that bond rating going forward. Yes, there is an increased debt service to the city, but it is well within limits as prescribed by prudent fiscal management. It will not significantly, of course, it will affect because it is spending money. It will not significantly affect the city's finances going forward. The total allowable debt that the city can incur, we are only, with this project, only at a third of the maximum allowable debt that the city could conceivably incur. So as a result, I feel very confident in saying that this project on a financial footing will have a minimal impact on the city's finances going forward. Its bond rating, the way we're looked at by various auditors, various other entities that are continually scrutinizing our books. So I feel very confident in that regard. Regarding the whereas clause and what Mr. Ridley said regarding the Friends of the Library, certainly I will be working with my staff to pursue any and all applicable grants that may be available. There's many different categories. There's quite a few categories for grants, so it gets a little bit narrower if you're looking for building grants, but for grants for supporting library operations, those are certainly worth pursuing. And I pledge to the council my staff and my capabilities to track those down in whatever way, shape, or form. And that also includes the Friends of the Library. The Friends of the Library are a fantastic organization. The city of Meriden is lucky to have this. As you well know, I spent almost 15 years involved in Glastonbury politics, and our Friends of the Library here in Meriden compare very favorably to that community in the amount of funds raising, the activities, etc. And that speaks well for that organization. So I will also say to the fact that there will be continued coordination between the city and the Friends of the Library and any other entity willing to step up to support this project. I'd be happy to entertain as we go forward any further questions, but in a general overview that pretty much encapsulates my position.
And I guess I just want to add one comment to the end of that so everyone understands. You know, we talk about the proposal being 9.3, but that is gross of the $1 million state grant that we'll be applying for. The resolution is actually conditioned on us receiving that. And one of the things before we can even apply, the deadline is August 31, is you have to have local legislative approval for the project. So it's almost like a chicken before the egg thing. You can't go applying for some grants until you can say, hey, here's what the city council has approved for the project. They have skin in the game, and therefore you can go ahead and apply for the grant and say, yes, that municipality is serious, and that's consistent with other types of grants that we apply for as well. So the net number to the city is 8.3, but we need to have the legislative approval of this council to even apply for that $1 million grant. And I would note, again, that the resolution is contingent at the end of the day on being awarded that amount. So with the city manager's final comments there, subject to questions afterward, I'm going to turn it over. We have Randall Luther here from TSKP. As was noted earlier, I think you two are going to have to maybe shift a little bit, and if we can even slide the chairs away from the diagrams. The Library Building Review Committee was formed a couple years ago by the City Council to look at this issue. And in the last couple budgets, I don't know if we did 75 a year or something like that, but the City Council also provided funding to that committee to hire an architectural firm to help us make these decisions. The stage they're at now is these schematics with the information that Randall's going to provide to us. If the City Council approves one of these options, perhaps the one that's in the resolution tonight, the architectural firm will then use the next 5 or 6 weeks to get the schematics and real detailed cost estimates that are necessary to do the grant application by August 31. And that's already included in the monies that the city council has previously approved in prior budgets. So that is the stage we're at tonight with our use of the architects. They've been consulting with us for the last, I don't know, has it been almost the last year? It's been a while with the Library Building Review Committee, and hopefully they have another couple months of work to help us push through to the finish line. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Randall, and the floor is yours.
Good evening. It's Randall Luther with TSKP Studio. The presentation you're about to see is one that was prepared by my partner, Whit Iglehart. He unfortunately is out of town, so I'm pinch hitting for him, and I just ask for your forbearance if I flub anything. So one of the things about being an architect and not being from Meriden is we come to the Meriden with fresh eyes. And so we're trying to get some context for the projects that we're working on, and in this case, the public library, situated downtown. And I have to tell you, coming to Meriden for the first time in a long time, the park that I sort of discovered is really a wonderful asset. It's really quite beautiful, and I think as those trees develop over time, it's just going to be a wonderful resource. I also understand it also not only looks great, but it solves some drainage issues that you've had, or begins to mitigate some drainage issues that you've had downtown. There's new housing going in. It starts to feel like that things are heading in the right direction. And from our perspective, we kind of feel like the library not only can be, but probably should be a part of the resurgence of the downtown. And part of that is that the library's always been kind of centrally located, but now its location is made even more prominent by the development of that park. You have that wonderful bandstand, you have those wonderful concerts, and they kind of look from the seating area, you kind of look right out, and across the park on the other side is the library now. You also have kind of the major sort of pedestrian circulation along the northwest side of the park, which feeds into a pedestrian bridge. There you go, pedestrian bridge that kind of takes you right up, and again, it kind of discharges you right at the library. So the library's location now is even more central than it once was. Oh, sorry, I'm going the wrong way. As we look at the particular site more closely, again, the sort of the northwest corner, which is what, this is just not working so good here. There we go. Northwest corner, which again faces the park, is now a more important series of facades than it once was. You have your two entrances from the north side and the south side from the parking area, and then those pedestrians I talked about that would be coming from across the bridge and along would be discharged again to this side of the building. The site itself is difficult. It's constrained by the property lines in very close proximity to the building in large portion. And then whatever part of the site is not building is parking, and it's all used. So there's very little opportunity to grab some additional space on the site. The site itself slopes kind of from the south side to the north side, and the building's in fact tucked into the hill here, and there's a little sort of outdoor sunken court on that part of the building. What is going on? We've got a technical problem here. Let's try it that way. There we go. The building itself, you're all familiar with the building, I'm sure. The main entrance elevation, the north side, as I said, it's kind of dark because it is the north side. The building is a 70s vintage. I guess the best way to describe the building is understated. The main entrance is virtually invisible to someone passing by unless you know where you're supposed to go. Over on the side here, you can see, again, how tight the property is, where we have this rental property very close to the existing building with a property line right in between. On the south side, the parking lot, the building is way in the back of the parking lot, and again, it's down a whole story into the grade, so a very low profile from that side as well. If you were to approach the building from here, you'd have to find your way over to the side to descend down these stairs between this fence to find the rear entrance of the building, and that is in need of some work. Other than that, the exterior envelope itself, from just sort of a maintenance perspective, is not bad. The brick actually is in pretty good shape. It doesn't really require a lot of repointing. The precast is in good shape. The windows are okay, but the roof is beyond its useful life, and that's something, regardless of whether this project moves ahead, will need to be addressed in a short period of time. So the building itself is organized fairly simply. The public is basically all on the first floor, and then on the second floor are sort of back-of-house functions for staff, technical services. There's some clothes stacks up here. There's a special collection, which is also in there. The Friends of the Library have space up there. There's a fair amount of mechanical space, some storage space, typically areas that the public does not find themselves. And then the lower level, you have your main entrance here on the north side, and you have the rear entrance, which comes in over here. As you come in the main entrance, circulation is here. This is adult areas for computers and reading. These are the general stack areas. And then beyond all this, if you find your way all the way to the back, you can see that sunken courtyard in the back, which is really not utilized at all currently. The children's area, which is located over on this corner, is really completely landlocked. There's no opportunity to expand it easily in any of these directions. We have the large meeting room that's located right adjacent to that. The teen area is right off the main entrance, which is great for supervision, but it's very small, and there's no separation, acoustic separation there, so it kind of limits teenagers' ability to kind of engage with each other and get a little raucous, as they might do. Looking at the children's area, very crowded. There's a lot of things going on in a fairly small space, and children just need space to spread out. In fact, we can't see it very well, but right here, there's a series of blocks and playthings in the middle of the aisle where the books are, because there's no place else for that to occur. So they're just taking over whatever space they can. You also notice the building is showing its age. It looks a little tired here, perhaps even a little dour for a children's area. The other spaces in the existing library have seen some improvements, nothing significant, but lighting has been improved in a lot of the different areas. There's a new circulation desk, but in general, there's a need for more computers, more technology, more meeting spaces, all of which currently are at capacity or over capacity. The back of house things up on the second floor, are very tight, very overcrowded, inefficient because of the overcrowding. The special collection, which is currently is not in its own separate space, does not have sufficient climate control. And when you have that situation, particularly with special collections and important historical pieces, you actually put them at risk that they will not survive over time due to improper climate control. The infrastructure, the mechanical, electrical, plumbing systems, most of which are original from the 70s. The exception of the boilers, which have been upgraded and are in fairly good shape, although there can be some modifications to the control systems which would improve the energy efficiency of those, but they still have plenty of life left to them. Unlike the air conditioning system, which is also getting to the end of its useful life, and there will need to be some significant upgrades done to that in the near future, regardless of whether or not the project moves ahead. Same goes for temperature controls. It uses an old-style pneumatic system, which is antiquated and is no longer supported by most manufacturers. The fire alarm system is fine, but it would not support any expansion or changes due to its age. So again, that's something that needs to be looked at. And then, of course, as technology becomes more and more prevalent throughout the building, electrical upgrades become a very important part of any project. And the elevator as well would need some upgrading. For those of you who've been in the elevator, you know of what we speak. So it's been mentioned that there were some earlier studies done. As part of those studies, there were some surveys done of the community about what they would like, what they feel is important. This is a listing of some of those priorities and some of those things that were felt to be important. I won't go through the entire list, but at the top you'll see the highest priority items: to enlarge and upgrade the children's room, enlarge and upgrade the teen area, enlarge and upgrade the public toilets. And again, if you've used the toilets, you know of what we speak. And then add meeting rooms. And there's been some discussion this evening about the importance of meeting rooms and libraries as a community center and how it's changed from what it used to be. So the priority list lists a lot of things that say more space, more space, more space. And so one of the things that we wanted to convince ourselves is that the problem is not that you just have an inefficient building that uses space poorly. And we wanted to confirm for ourselves that that's not what was going on. So we wanted to benchmark the library that you currently have to see, is it the right size? Should it be bigger? Should it be smaller? Where do you stand? So the Connecticut State Library has a space planning guide that's actually quite good. And it has a lot of criteria that you enter in that talks about the size of your community, the number of volumes you have, the number of computers, the number of staff, the programs you serve, you have. You kind of go through this whole exercise, and it'll tell you, for your community and your particulars, about what size your library ought to be. So when we went through that exercise, and there was some give and take and a little bit of, changing some of there was some discussion about what should be in, what should be out. When you go through that process, it says that your library for this community and your current population and the way it's being used should probably be around 58,400 square feet, gross square feet. And that's plus or minus. There's some fudge in that. Could go either way. Your existing library is 40,400 gross square feet. So when we see the priorities of all these things, all the space that they want, it's borne out by what the Connecticut State Library guide is telling us, that you really should have a slightly larger library than you have to accommodate modern programs that are called for in today's libraries. So that was nice to know that everyone's instinct that we needed more space was well-founded. But despite that, the committee thought it would be prudent to see what could be accomplished if we just work within the existing envelope of the building. As you've heard from some of the people this evening, fiscal restraint is something that's appreciated by everyone. So we went through an exercise of seeing what could be done within the existing building footprint. So in this option, which is basically no addition and just a partial renovation, this is really the least that we feel is viable as a project, below which it's just a maintenance project. So we worked with the committee on what we really had to do at the very least, what mechanical things we had to address, and we came up with this option. And so in this option, most of the first floor, pretty much all the first floor that patrons see, would be renovated. All the finishes would be done, all the mechanical systems, all the electrical systems. It would look new in terms of all the finishes. What we would not be addressing, though, would be the bookmobile area, Friends of Library space. Those would be excluded from that first floor. We would be expanding the children's area by relocating it. Currently it's here. We're going to move it now right directly opposite the main entrance, and we're going to run it all the way back to the south part of the building. So now it has access to that sunken courtyard, and that can become an opportunity for some programs perhaps with the children, and it could see more use. Once we move the children's area out of here and over into this location, we've freed up some space. And with that space, we're going to put the teens over there now in a new expanded space, and we're able to add 2 more meeting rooms. On the second floor, we're very selective. Again, we don't want to spend, in this option, we're going to spend the money just pretty much where the people are going to see it. So there's very little going on other than we created a special collection space where we can have some proper climate control. And we're kind of grabbing a storage space and helping to expand a little bit the technical services that are going on up there. The rest of the upstairs, other than maybe some code items, is going to be left largely as it is today. So this is sort of a minimal renovation option. Now, one of the issues, and it's been alluded to earlier this evening, in a renovation option is that you need a place to put the programs while you're renovating the space. So if I want to come in here and get the children out of here and then renovate that space, I need to have some place to put them, or I have to discontinue the program. Now, no one wants to discontinue the program, so you need to find a place to move them temporarily while I renovate their space, then I move them back. So up here, you can see the site. There's the existing library. And so during construction, the contractor will be there. He'll have probably a trailer. He'll have some lay-down areas for some of his equipment, for materials, for some parking. And we're suggesting perhaps that occurs over in this lot here. And then we have to find that space for the programs that are going to be dislocated during the renovation. And so in this case, we're suggesting that there be some temporary structure out here, modular building or whatever, for swing space. And that's the space that, as we go around and renovate section by section of the building, we would move each of those pieces out into that swing space, renovate it, and then move them back, and then move somebody else into the swing space. So there's sort of a couple of negative implications to this strategy. The first is that you're now in 2 buildings. So for staffing and monitoring, it's an issue. The second is that you're spending money on a temporary facility. All the money that's spent on that goes once the project's done, and you have nothing to show for it. So it's money that's lost. And then the third downside is that we already know that the site is tight and that there's very little parking. And so as little parking as there is, we're going to take out a huge lot out of service along with this lot out of service. So there's going to be a real crunch on where these people park during the renovation. Certainly it's manageable. These things are done all the time, but it is not going to be easy. And so that's one of the concerns that were raised in a renovation option. So the children's room, we talked about relocating it, redoing it. Whether we do a renovation or whether we do an addition, one of the goals has got to be to create a children's area that doesn't look dated, that looks fun, that's bright, that's daylit, that kids want to go to, that when they come in, they see it, they take off, they run to it, and the parents have to hunt them down. That's the kind of space that we want, and that's our goal, and that's done with furniture, it's done with daylight, and like I said, windows, color, all these things that we think can contribute to creating a wonderful new children's area. I was interested to hear earlier when the representatives of the Board of Education were speaking about libraries and how they have all kinds of different seating now, and kids like to learn in lots of different ways. Adults are the same. I mean, I know when I go to a library, I don't always want to sit in a chair at a desk. Sometimes I want to sit in a comfortable sofa. I want to put my feet up. I want to read a nice book. I want to sit by the window. I want to look out at the view. I want to be by a fireplace. So as part of this renovation, we want to provide a variety of opportunities for people to sit together, sit alone, read a book, talk with some friends of theirs, work on homework. We want to provide that kind of variety, and that's anticipated as part of this project. Oh, did I go back? So the second option that we looked at is essentially, from a planning perspective, identical to the first option. And this is, again, no addition, but full renovations. We're not going to restrict ourselves to the least amount of space that we can possibly renovate. We're going to renovate the whole building, walk away and know that everything there has been touched and upgraded and is good for another, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. So in this case, on the first floor, we are taking care of the bookmobile and the Friends of the Library space. On the second floor, we're going to grab the entire second floor now. We're going to upgrade everything, all the mechanical systems, everything. So that when we walk away, we know there aren't any other future projects that are a few years out that are going to have to be done because we didn't take care of it as part of this project. We still have the phasing issues associated with the renovation project. And of course, because we're renovating more, the costs are slightly higher. But we felt it was important to look at this as another option. And with this option, one of the things we wanted to take care of, or at least address in some small way, is the main entrance of the library. Again, this is kind of the face of the building. This is the image that most people have when they drive by and they decide, should I check out the library or not? The current library, again, it's very succinct where the entrance is. The glass is kind of this dark tinted glass, so there's really no visibility in at all. It's a little bit foreboding. So in a very simple way, we're suggesting perhaps, we just replace the glass at the main entrance. We go with a clear glass. And then perhaps there's some small canopy or something that protrudes so that as I'm walking along the road, the sidewalk, I see something that kind of flags the main entrance. I kind of have a sense of where it is I'm supposed to go and give it a little more life on the sidewalk. So the third option that we looked at was to add square footage, add space. And so the first challenge with that is, where do you add space? There are really, from our perspective, were only three possible locations that space could be added. The first was in the back here, and sort of grab that sunken courtyard and expand a little bit. And there are a couple issues with that. First of all, it is halfway, is down below grade. You'd have to have a two-story addition there to get it up to the upper level. So that means people are entering the public is entering at the upper level when the library is basically at the lower level, so there's a monitoring issue in knowing what's going on at that upper level. Also, we're going to be excavating and working into the hillside, so that's more expensive from a construction perspective. Oh, that wasn't supposed to happen. And I just lost my train of thought now. Yeah, I'm on the hillside. Oh, thank you. I'm on the hillside. And then the third downside here to this is that any addition there is going to negatively impact parking. And again, parking is a premium here. And so to do an addition to invite more people to the library only to provide less parking seems like a counterproductive argument. The other option that was discussed and looked at was actually, so you have a site and a project where you have no place to go, so let's go up. Let's not expand out. Let's build up. That makes sense. Unfortunately, most of the existing structure is not designed to support a second floor, and to the extent that some of it is, seismic codes have changed dramatically since the 70s, and any addition on the second floor would require a seismic upgrade to the whole building because of the impact of that upper level, that new mass that's up on the second floor. And so that becomes a very costly option. And then there are also some issues that there are with the first option A, which is that now you have more square footage on the second floor, and how the staff monitors what's going on between the levels becomes a little bit of a problem. So then the third option is, well, let's just expand the property. let's get a little more space so that we can fit in what we need to do. And that's this option here, where we kind of grab this corner, where we're in a very tight relationship with this rental property anyway. It kind of looms over the library, so we're saying let's acquire that and let's expand in that direction. So when we do that, you get something that would look kind of like that white section right there. And we are suggesting about a 9,200 square foot plus or minus addition that would go in that corner where that current rental property is located. And the way this would work is that addition is located right here. And so that would be a new multi-purpose room. And when we do that, we would also relocate the entrance, which is currently right here, over to here. And now the north side entrance and the south side entrance are in alignment. And so there's this kind of big entry gallery and also sort of lobby space that links both entrances. We would then grab all the space on this side, move out since we're creating a new multi-purpose room, we can take the existing multi-purpose room that's in here and move it into that space. And now we can grab all that space for the children's area. We can expand it. We have a lot of room to do all the things that we would love to do. The adult reading, which currently is sort of in the middle of the building, kind of surrounded by books, which is nice in a library, but it also would be nice if it perhaps it had a little more access to daylight and maybe some outdoor seating. And so by moving it to the back, we afford a greater opportunity for that. And then the teen area, which currently is sort of right here, we've expanded it all the way along sort of the north side of the building to give them a lot more room for the programs that they need. On the second floor, I should say that, so the entire rest of the first floor is renovated, again with the exception of the book mobile and the Friends of the Library space. It was felt that space, in an effort to kind of keep costs manageable, was not something that necessarily needed to be upgraded as it was in the first renovation option. And on the second floor, similarly to the first renovation option, we're just very selective in the work we're doing on the second floor. And other than creating a new special collection room for humidity and temperature control, the only other thing is the creation of kind of a multi-purpose room up there, which would really serve as kind of a learning lab, perhaps a computer classroom. So for very specific programs that would occur up on the second floor. And then there'd be a little bit of reconfiguration just to help with the efficiencies of the technical services area. Let's go to the next. So in this option, we would have a new entrance now and kind of expanded area right here with perhaps some kind of little canopy so those that are moving up and down along the street, it's quite apparent where we need to go. And like in the full renovation option, we would open this up again, with maybe some clear glass. But in this case, I'll be able to see all the way through to the south side, which of course is bright because it's the south side. So it'll be much more open because I'll be able to see through to the daylight on the other side. So it'll feel much more inviting in this scenario. And then when you enter in, our vision is, for kind of a very welcoming, again, a daylit space. Self-service is becoming more and more prominent in the libraries today. So there'd be perhaps book drop there, maybe some pickup for books that you can reserve earlier, and maybe you're notified that they're available for pickup. Perhaps there's an electronic message board that tells you the programs that are coming up. There's an opportunity. There's a sort of what I can tell, a vibrant art scene here, and there's an opportunity for gallery space that could be used here. And then as you continue on, you arrive at sort of the rear entrance, which also serves as kind of a lobby space for the multipurpose room. So again, after hours, the building right along this line can be closed off, and you can enter from either side. You have this kind of lobby space off this parking lot, which would serve the new multi-purpose room. And that space, again, can be, very open and inviting. There's been some, discussion about food, you know, food's wonderful, but really it's more of sort of an informal gathering space, again, that can work with the multipurpose room, you know, whether there's vending there or whether there's a vendor who's, you know, selling muffins. None of that has been determined, but the idea is just that it's a nice space that you can use for receptions and gives the multipurpose room a lot more functionality. There's also, right off of this, a kitchen, so for catering opportunities, again, the more flexibility and the more uses that we can provide for that multipurpose room, the more use it will see. And so the multipurpose room itself, it's right here. It would be a space that could be subdivided with some, you know, folding partitions. Again, it's easy access and can be operated independently of the rest of the library. We've done spaces like this in lots of other libraries. This one happens to be in Wilton. We renovated their library a few years ago. This is the Brubeck Room. Dave Brubeck made a donation, so he gets a room named after him. This is used constantly. It's used for films, receptions, concerts, lectures. I actually was there a few years ago for a public hearing on another project we were doing. It just sees all kinds of different uses. And again, the children's area itself, we're now able to capture a great deal of space, a lot of room for the children to expand and to kind of run around and do all the things that kids love to do. And perhaps there's some idea that there's something that could be done in the corner, recognizing that you're going to be looking at the building from across the park. And then the teen area, I mentioned, we're going to expand it all the way along the edge here. So we're able to capture a lot of space. And they're kind of isolated here, which is kind of good. But they're also in close proximity to what will be the new reception. And so there's good visibility. And that space, you know, perhaps looks something like this. It really, you know, wants to be kind of a hangout that kids actually want to go to after school. It needs to be a technology-rich environment. A lot of comfortable seating, lots of different kinds of seating, a very flexible sort of space. There's been a lot of discussion that there be sort of a maker space here that perhaps is shared with the adults as well. And again, just multiple opportunities. And then in this case, we're illustrating sort of, you know, glass separation here. Because in reality, if you want the kids to come, they need to be able to talk with their friends and chat. And if they're constantly told they got to be quiet because they're disrupting the rest of the patrons, it's not going to be as successful a space as you would like. So acoustic separation is important. We've done a space very much like this in Hartford. It was mentioned earlier, Hartford Public Library. This is their U-Media space. And it has a lot of the features that we're talking about here, that the community's talking about. You know, there's video gaming, there's a maker space, there's a sound booth where you're able to do recording, sound mixing. They do silk screening there, they do jewelry there. It's just a very flexible space that gets an enormous number of kids after school. It's very popular. It's a huge success story up there in Hartford. So in all of these options, we are talking about renovations, and renovations are disruptive. There's no way around that. And these are just some of the issues that we know are out there, and we've taken these issues into account in our budgeting purposes. You know, patron staff safety are critical, so there'll need to be barriers built, temporary barriers for every area that they're renovating to keep patrons separate from construction areas. We know there are going to be some impacts to parking as a result of the construction. There may be some impacts on library programs as some of the spaces get shuffled around. You may not be able to use them as well as you currently do. There could be an impact on library hours in the short term. There's always the potential for some noise, construction staging, and then phasing. You know, if we could do it in one phase, if we could just empty the building and renovate the whole thing, it could go very quickly. But that's not going to happen. Instead, we have to do it in little pieces. And the smaller the pieces are, the longer the project takes. So we have to work out what's the most efficient way to get the building done, but at the same time, not disrupt the operations of the building. So speaking of phasing, in the addition option, phasing is a little bit different. And that actually is one of the big advantages to the addition option. In the addition option, while the library is in operation, basically the way it operates today with very little impact, you would begin construction on the new multipurpose room. So the contractor will be working outside, he'll be building that addition, the library will be going about its business the way it pretty much always does. The south entrance may be taken offline, but other than that, there's no adverse impact to the programs. Once that addition is completed, then we can say take the children's library and we can move it into that new addition that we just built, free up that children's area, and then we can begin the renovation there. And then once that's completed, we can move the children back into their home, to their renovated space, and then move the next program in. And by this method, we can move our way around, moving current spaces into the new addition and use that as swing space. So the dollars that are spent in the other options for a temporary space to house programs, we can use those dollars here to build square footage that's permanent and that can be used in the future. So that's a big advantage in how this addition option works. So this is a chart that kind of summarizes the three options, the pluses, the minuses, the costs. So just kind of starting at the top, you have the existing building. There we go. The existing building, which is 45,000 square feet, thereabouts. And then we have the partial renovation, the full renovation, and the addition option. And so the first column, or the first row, is the building size. So you'll see in the renovation options, the building size is the same, but in the addition option, the building is larger. It's 53,550 feet, if I'm reading that correctly. Below that is the project size. Now, the project size is how much of the existing building, or how much of the building we're actually going to do work on. So in the partial renovation, we're only going to touch about 35,000 square feet of the 45,000 square foot of the building, which means, as you may recall, most of the second floor we weren't touching. So that's why this number 35 is less than the 45. In the full renovation, it's just as it says. It's full renovation, so we're touching all the square footage. And in the addition option, we were more selective in what was going to be renovated. So again, you're going to see a disparity between the actual building size and the amount of square footage that we're going to be renovating, which is about 45,000. So then we have come down a little bit, and these are the priorities that were identified through the surveys and building committee meetings and outreach to the community. And of course, very important is to upgrade and enlarge the children's room. Your existing children's library is about 4,900 square feet. In the partial renovation, we're able to enlarge that to about 5,900 square feet, which is the same in the full renovation. But in the addition option, because we're able to get more square footage to the addition, that's able to go up to about 6,900 square feet. Similarly, adding multi-purpose space, you currently have about 3,800, 3,900 square feet. With the partial renovation, you'll pick up about, you go up to about 5,300 square feet, full renovation about the same, and then for the addition, we get 6,300 square feet. So again, as you would expect, since we added square footage, we're able to improve on all those categories. And then the same thing, enlarging the teen area, we're able to increase it significantly from existing in all the options, and it steadily goes up as you go from more and more levels of renovation and expansion. Now the rest, again, is a listing of all the different things that we've sort of talked about through this presentation that you've heard through the evening. And we've kind of ranked them using sort of the Consumer Reports system of, solid dot means it takes care of it, half dot means partially, and then open means it doesn't really address it at all. And again, as you would expect, as you spend more and more money and you do create more and more square footage, you're able to achieve more of your goals. so that in the addition, partial renovation option, we're able to achieve all of the stated goals, with the exception of some window replacement and maybe some additional insulation, which, by the way, we did look at early on. And we thought, well, you want to improve the envelope as part of a project. But the payback on a window replacement for this project it just never pays for itself. That money is much better spent on mechanical system upgrades. And so the committee chose to not pursue replacing the windows. And as I mentioned at the beginning of my presentation, the envelope actually is in pretty good shape. It's not calling out that it needs to be replaced were it not for maybe an attempt to improve the envelope from a thermal perspective. So then we get to everybody's favorite column here, the costs. And so these right here are the construction costs. So that's the number that you will sign a contract someday with a general contractor or a construction manager to deliver the project for. And so for the partial renovation, again, this is the least you could possibly do to make a viable project in our estimation. It's about $4.9 million. And then for the full renovation, it's $6.5 million. And then for the addition and partial renovation, you're at $7.4 million. But that's just the construction cost. Projects cost more than the construction cost. There are things called soft costs. And soft costs include design fees, contingencies, furniture and equipment, testing labs. I'm probably forgetting some things. Typically, those soft costs are in the 25 to 30% of construction cost. So we're carrying 25% of your construction cost. And that brings the total project cost, that's all in. That's what you need to, this is what you tell the community, this is what this project costs. So it's $6.3 million for the minimal renovation, 7.8 for the full renovation, and then the 9.3 for the full addition, partial renovation option. And then below that, we've subtracted the $1 million grant that's anticipated, library grant that's anticipated from the state, to give you the 5.3, 6.8, and $8.3 million costs. The last thing, there's a question that was raised after our last presentation, and we added this slide. So in the renovation options, I was able to demonstrate that, hey, look, we increased the children's area, we increased the teen area, we added a multi-purpose room, all within the existing footprint. Magic, right? Well, it's not magic. Something had to give. We had to take it from something. So in the two options where we don't add any square footage, this is part of how it's accomplished. The biggest losers were 1,600 square feet of open stack area we had to take out. And we also took out 1,250 square feet of reference area in those options, plus other square footages. The whole laundry list of smaller amounts, but basically everything took a haircut. But those two took the biggest whack. In the addition, partial renovation option, there's still a small loss in stack area. And actually that's normal because, as it's been mentioned through the evening, the world is going digital and collections are getting reduced slightly. And so there'll be a little bit of pruning that goes on. So the thought is that 850 square feet is not really a material loss. And then there's actually a gain in reference area compared to the loss in the no addition options. So that's kind of where we are. That's where we've left it with the committee. As you know, they've recommended, or they've endorsed the addition option as the best value. It may not be the lowest cost, but in terms of value added, it seems like the best bet from their perspective and from our perspective. I guess I'll open it up for questions.
Thank you. And can you email that presentation to the city manager?
Yes.
Sometime tomorrow, then he can get it circulated out to the mayor and the city council, and maybe get it posted onto the city website as well, so the public has access to it, and the library can post it on their website as well. So thank you, Randall, for that presentation, and I'm going to turn it over to my vice chair for his questions. I know you're going to have some.
Yeah, through the chair, through the chair. Thank you, Brian. I'd like to direct this question to our finance director. Michael, if we go with the phase 3, the 9.3 million or 8.3 million, what would be the total cost? It's a 20-year bond, am I correct?
Correct. It would be estimated to be a
All right,
20-year
what would be
bond.
the total cost, including the bonding, after 20 years?
The,
Off the top of your head, you're pretty good at that.
I know the first year out was approximately 750,000, and then it would escalate.
Give me a cost for full 20 years.
For total, where are we here? Current cost, about $12 million, a little bit under.
$12 million, is that just the cost of bonding?
Correct.
All right, so now we're looking at 9.3 plus 12 million.
No,
Minus a million. Total, all right, 12 total, okay.
in principal and
Minus a million.
interest would be
So
just
we are
under
looking at
12 million.
9.3, we're looking at 12 point what?
It's about 11.8.
All right, so 12 million.
Right.
So now I'm looking at a project, not 9.3, I'm looking at a project $12 million. If you include the bonding.
Including the interest, correct.
Well, you know, it's just that, I'm a guy, I'm a very cautious guy when it comes to spending money. In my house, if I had an option of 3 options, and one was $3 million more, $4 million more, I might go with the lower option. So it just, could I ask you one more question through the chair, Brian? How much did our grand list go up last year, Mike, the last fiscal year, any idea?
The grand list went up, I believe it was about $55 million, I believe it was.
65, yeah.
Right.
So what impact would this have on our bonding if it went up to 12 million? If we went with phase 3, would that impact our bonding rating?
No, this would be just considered part of our ongoing, capital needs.
All right,
As the city manager had mentioned, it falls,
Right. All right, now, phase 1, what would the bonding be on phase 1? Any idea? We're looking at $12 million on phase 3.
right, so you'd
With the
probably be
bond.
about 9 million would be
$9 million.
a quick estimate.
How can that be?
Well, we're talking $5 million as
Yeah.
opposed to,
5 million?
right.
And the other's 9.3 million, how can the difference only be that?
You still have your,
No, but you're
you
saying,
get 5.9.
no, there's something, it doesn't sound right to me.
Yes, no, okay, so you're right, you'd probably be more towards the $8 million range.
8 million, there.
Yeah.
So there's a big difference between phase 1 and phase 2 or 3. You're talking at least $4 million that's gonna cost us more for phase 3 than phase 1, am I correct?
A quick back of the napkin calculation, yes, but again, you're receiving a different,
Well, I'm just.
Level
looking-
of service,
I'm just looking
right.
at the city's position. In my business, the real estate business, houses are not appreciating. I have a house on Brownstone Ridge, it was $365,000, it's now $325,000. So prices aren't going up in real estate, and I'm sure that this is a great, and some things that I'm just curious, Brian, I can address this to anybody on the library board. Do we really need, how much is staffing, any idea how much extra staffing is gonna cost if we went with phase 3?
I can't really say that. I think it would depend on the use. If use went up and we needed more staff for programs, for
Will there
programming,
be
yes,
an
but
increase?
for,
Will there be-
to manage the space, the additional square footage, no.
Is there any increase in personal staffing? I mean, for extra city staff there with phase 3?
As I would
The
say,
cost, would it cost the city more?
I can't say that unless we created additional programming to manage the additional square footage and that the facility as laid out. I don't think we would need it, but if we did more programming, for example, if we wanted to hire somebody that was a
Right.
really tech wizard for the teen area, then yes. But it would all be related to the programming that we're providing, not necessarily the square footage
Yeah, you don't
of the
know.
space.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, the only thing in conclusion, I might have some other questions later. $12 million, I'm a fiduciary for the city. I mean, $12 million is a lot of money in this economy. I'm just telling you right now. The city certainly isn't getting new businesses. I can ask the economic director. Any new businesses coming in? I'm sure he'd say, not at the present time. Am I correct in that, Joe? There you go. So I don't have businesses to take care of the taxes. So I'm a little leery about spending $12 million on phase 3.
Mr. Chairman, could I give one clarification?
Sure, absolutely.
I'm looking at the chart that I was looking at here. I had provided a whole series of different calculations, and the one here that's at $12 million, there's a couple of assumptions that are made that I'm just reading here as everyone else is talking.
I understand that.
That the $1 million was not
You get back
included.
from the state.
This was if we held the project off for several years, so there was cost escalations in there and additional rate increase assumptions that were made. So that $12 million, I don't have it right in front of me, I can grab it, is overstated by at least $1 million plus. So you're probably more around the 11 million to 10.5 range.
Looking at the difference between phase 1, phase
It's
2,
gonna be
and
more.
phase 3, Mike.
The different options,
It's gonna be
correct.
more.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
I just didn't want to give you wrong information, sir.
You could be wrong.
Anyone else? Councilor Castro.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A few years ago, when I chaired the Health and Human Services Committee at the council level, I've engaged in many conversations with regards to the possibility of a U-Media program starting in Meriden. And the only way we could perhaps address that was through the library efforts. And I was grateful to the leadership of Karen and her staff and Leah Crown, the director of our Health and Human Services Department in our city, that brought many partners to the table to have that discussion, which include, the Boys and Girls Club, members of the Y, Girls Inc., and Beat the Streets, to just to name a few. I think that embracing the possibility of adding an amenity to the many that the public library already have, which is this possible U-Media, but something that, sparked a number of other things in our conversations. And I believe that under your leadership, Karen, there was a pilot program that kind of discover some of the ways and paths that could happen and come to Meriden. I believe that our library structure is outdated. It's not energy efficient. There is a number of issues, and due to some of these structure setbacks, the library has still stepped up and provided superb and up-to-date services to our entire city. And people who come from other cities to benefit from the programs and resources of our library. I believe that our library have bridged the gap implementing a number of resources that have benefit the city in different programs, special needs kids, the youth, adults, and senior. But I would like to mention that during the conversations of our Choice Neighborhood Planning Grant efforts, briefly, I talked about the possibility of expanding and getting some of these additional possibilities, which include the library. The U-Media started at Harold Washington Library in downtown Chicago in 2009. And it was a place where teens could freely explore their own interest. The space became a popular space and gained nationwide attention for its innovative programs. And U-Media not only changed how people think about coming to the library with regards to addressing the teens' needs, but it established a nationwide resource. U-Media in Hartford is a next generation digital learning, and to the point of our economic development director, and maker space for teens between the ages of 13 and 19. And the combination of professional tools and eager learners and skilled mentors set the bar for informal learning, which is really what I think we need in our city. The number of partners that were part of that discussion during our efforts back a few years ago, I think that they've shown the interest to perhaps enlarged and encouraged that this is something that could happen. The U-Media program, knowing that there's going to be a teens area, could be a part of something significant in our city that is going to continue to partner with not only the other nonprofits that embrace similar programs, but they can just, highlight some of the needs and continue to bridge the gap. The young people can access resources that they need and achieve their goals, whether it's career, educational, or personal goals. And the program is there to guide the young people towards the knowledge, the skills, and behaviors that will help them be successful in their own terms. And the fact that this is a possibility, along with all of the other amenities that already exist in our library, this is, without any doubt, a major investment, but is a long-term investment, not a short-term investment. Under the leadership of the library, the friends of the library, and the community, and with my fiduciary responsibility as an elected official, as a member of this finance committee, I wholeheartedly support Phase 3 and moving this project in the right direction to continue to cast our city under a positive light. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councilor Carabetta.
Thanks, Brian. Through the chair, I just have a few questions, but before I do that, I just wanted to thank the committee for putting this together and the firm. You did a good job, and it was a great presentation. So I'm just gonna, I guess I'll put my question through you, Brian. Was the buying of the property in the, we'll call it the 9-2 or the 12, whatever you want to call the figure, was that in there? That was? And then,
Yeah, I'll tell me, somebody tell me if I'm wrong, but the purchase, you're talking about the Catlin Street property?
that's correct.
Right. So that is included in there, but at the same time, you'll see there's another resolution before us tonight. The library had $200,000 from people who had passed away previously, left the library as the donor, and the library board voted unanimously. We've gotten that resolution previously. They are paying for the purchase of that property and the demolition of it. So the cost is in there, but it's also being paid for by dollars that are not coming out of the general fund.
Okay. And then two other points that I looked at it quickly, and I know you're going to circulate it, but I didn't see anything on paving. I'm not sure if that was talked about, and or somebody brought up a good point, and I thought about it. What about the elevator? Those two would be my only questions in regards to your presentation.
Sure. So, again, I'll answer it quickly while he's looking. But with the addition option, there isn't going to be any issue on paving because the addition is going where those, I'll say those crappy back stairs are that go all the way out. Whether there's some minor stuff with what's left over the property when the house comes down, but otherwise the parking lot is not being affected by it. For the elevators, the freight elevator was in the CIP budget that we approved, so there's only one elevator that needs to be part of this. I don't know if you've been in it, but it needs to be replaced anyway.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, but that elevator is part of the renovation, is that one elevator up front. Is that correct, Randall?
That's correct.
So I guess I guess to go back to the paving part, the existing paving that's there now that is in fine condition, or is paving in that number?
No, paving's not in that number, and this is where I'm at a little bit of a loss. My partner would know better how the decision was derived to not address the paving, and I don't have a mental picture of the condition of that paving. I mean, I do know to the extent that the contractor's using parts of it for staging or for temporary spaces, they will be responsible for protecting, and if there's any damage, if they have to mill and overlay because of their work, that would be their responsibility. But I just flipped through the estimate quickly, and then I don't see any monies in here for paving.
I guess my whole point is that I just don't want to see an additional cost at the end of
Sure.
the project for paving.
Sure.
You know, that gets expensive, so. But I guess before I pass it back, I mean, overall, it's obvious something has to be done at the library. It's dated. I guess what it breaks down to is where do you draw the line, and how much can the taxpayers, the businesses, the people of this city actually burden? And my personal opinion is, I personally think 9.3 is just too great. And that's kind of where I stand. I'm not a voting member on this committee. I am, if it does make it to council, I wouldn't be in favor of the 9.3. So it's just kind of where I stand overall. Thanks.
Council Williams.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bear with me, Brian, I've kind of got some notes scribbled my first pass at this, so, can I, what's the gentleman's name?
Randall. Or
Raymond.
Mr. Luther, however you want to.
Raymond?
Randall.
Randall. I'm just going to call you sir, because we've got 5 names for you already. Let's see. Yeah, under each of your, each of the options, I guess, what would be the timeline for each of the 3? Can you give us some clarity on that?
Sure. So the estimates have built in some escalation, and we currently have about a year and a half built into the estimate in terms of escalation for the start of construction. Now, that needs to be tested a little bit in terms of you know, when we get started, when we get released, when the town says go. It would take us probably 6 to 9 months once we are told to go, to pull a set of documents together. And then we would need to put those out to bid, get somebody on board, award contracts. And then the construction itself, probably, again, depending on phasing, which is a big unknown, probably a year and a half, I would say, would be about a good guess. It could go as long as 2 years just in a renovation option and a lot of small phases. It might go a little bit faster in the addition option, but I wouldn't take that to the bank.
So that would be all 3 options? You feel that's a relevant timeline?
Yeah, I think it's going to be pretty similar in all 3. In either case, it starts with a mobilization phase. In the new addition option, you're actually building square footage. In the other options, you have to get some temporary, portable structures out there. Those aren't lying around typically either. There's quite a long lead time on getting those things out there, getting those set up. And so they're both going to have a very similar timeline, I think.
Yeah, the other question, again, through the chair, the other observation I had was under the partial renovation versus full and added space or added option, I saw that the circle up here was fully colored in as far as the utility upgrades. Under the partial renovation, if I remember correctly, that was partially colored in. Yeah, there you go. What is, can you give us any clarity on that?
You're looking, which line?
Near the bottom, where you have lighting, energy, mechanical. You'll see under the first option, it's partially, or half colored in, I guess. In option 2 and 3, it's fully colored in. I'm just curious. To me, it sounded like the utilities, based on your presentation and what I saw at the library when I went through several years ago, it seemed like that was a pretty important issue as far as the mechanical upgrades. I'm just curious why under option 1 is it not fully addressed, I guess.
Well, I mean, there's no real good answer other than, there was a consensus to try and limit the scope of that first option as much as possible. So, for example, one of the things that's not addressed in that option that would be partially included in this MEP upgrades were the upstairs toilets, which are staff toilets. I think those were excluded because the thinking was, again, it's a staff area. We don't necessarily have to do that right now. And then also, I think in general, some of those, MEP, I shouldn't say, some of the electrical upgrades perhaps on the second floor in terms of maybe lighting and a few other systems may not be addressed in that first option. Again, we haven't gone through exhaustively and said what's in, what's out. but there was an attempt to be selective about what systems absolutely needed to be done and what systems could be left alone in areas that are not high priority, storage areas, things like that, primarily on the second floor.
The other question I have, is the entrance upgrade noted in all three options?
No, it's not in the first option. It's
Not
just
in the first
It's in
option.
the second and third options.
Right, correct. The other question I have, did Hartford do a total renovation package? I know you used them as a case study.
Just in that area. It was a very discrete renovation of the main library. They carved out some space.
So they didn't do a total renovation package, they did
No.
they did a carve-out, for the sake of a better word?
Correct, correct.
Thank you. The other thought I had, certainly you're putting together projections as far as costs and construction. Does that represent union costs, union wages?
This would be prevailing wage.
Okay, all right, very good. And then to either the city manager or finance, thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Your name's going to change again, don't worry about it.
Not a problem.
We talk about a $1 million grant that we'll be applying for, I think you said the end of August, is that correct? Or by the end of August, is that accurate? Is there a timeline to apply for that grant?
The answer to that would be yes. That's why it's at the end of August. We have to have it submitted by the September 1st.
I mean, that's just the way it is, you can't
That's the way
get
it is for
beyond
the
that.
year.
Yeah. I mean, my only observation, clearly the library needs work. It's dated, it's old, it's in bad shape. I agree with you, and I support it to one degree or another. I don't know if I support it at $9.2 million, but I definitely feel something needs to be done. Ideally, in my mind, and I don't know that we can do this, so I just throw this out on the table for consideration, but I'd like this to be a question on the ballot in November, and let the public decide if we want to spend 9.2 or 10.2, or someone threw around the number of 14 or 15 million. So ideally, I would like to see that happen. I don't know how feasible that is because of this timeline for the $1 million. If we can get maybe a little more clarity on that thought, that's what I'd like to see. Again, I want to reiterate that I think it's critical that we do something, but I think to have the public buy in and have this as an item on the ballot in November, I think would be the way to go. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Mayor, and then I guess I can address some of Councilor Williams' questions. Go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. So first with a question through the chair to our library director. Karen, could you shed a little light? I know it was brought up in the public hearing at the start that we have not seen or heard any statistics on library usage, and a number of individuals talking about how it's been greatly declining and no one's using it. But it's been my experience that there's been a pretty great and diverse population every time I've walked into the library. So I'm just wondering if you have stats that you can actually portray to showcase how many people, heightened activity levels, and anything like that.
Yes, I part of it has been reported in the part of it is stated in the resolution, so I didn't want to take a lot of time reiterating things that had been stated already. But I can say we're just at the end of our fiscal year, which is June 30th, so I'm compiling statistics, beginning to compile statistics now for this past year. I can say we do have a gate counter, and as long as we don't have a power blip, it is a pretty good accurate counter. I've stated for many years here that we have 700 to 800 people a day that come through the library. A lot of those people just walk in, they use the copier, they may just walk in, return a book, pick up a hold. Other people come in to read a magazine. Lots of people come in to sit and use the Wi-Fi. People come in for meetings and bringing their children in for programs. So people are in and out. It's a busy place. Library circulation nationally is declining slightly. It pretty much mirrors, and it always has, the state of the national economy. So when the economy is tanking, library use goes up, and as the economy does a little better, library use has traditionally gone down. So the borrowing of physical materials has decreased slightly, and the borrowing of digital materials, which we also provide, has been increasing. In Meriden last year, we circulated about 250,000 items, and our circulation actually did not go down. It went up 1%. It stayed essentially the same. And the reason for that is that members of our community are gradually getting access to better equipment, so digital usage is still increasing at our library, where in other libraries it's peaking. So the thought that people are only going to digital is proving to be not really true, that there's a certain percentage of people that use it. Most of us use it when it's useful, that format is useful, but we use the traditional print material when that's useful too. So people want the type of format they want for whatever their personal needs are at the time. So about 250,000 items went out. 700 to 800 people a day come through the library. About 60% of our circulation is adult, and 40% is for children. And that we have last year, and I haven't gotten the count for this past fiscal year, but there were about 18,000 card holders. We only, and those are unexpired cards, so that means they'd have to have used it within the last 2 years, so that everyone that's registered has used the library at least once in the last 2 years.
Thank you. If I may continue. So, Karen, to that point of your circulation increase, your daily visitor totals, is it safe to say that within the last handful of years, you have not seen a significant decrease of traffic into the library whatsoever?
I will say that this year I totally expect to see a decrease in library circulation because the bookmobile was off the road for the year. So we circulate 10 to 12,000 items a year on the bookmobile, and it wasn't out on the road this year. So there will be a decrease this year. And as I said, right now we have stayed stable because of that balance between increasing use in our community of digital materials, awareness and ability to access it, as opposed to other communities, even as print material has gone down slightly.
Thank you. And if I may continue, this is something we've heard, not just tonight, but over the last several months, is that, where did this idea come from? This just kind of came out of thin air. I think it's been brought to light this evening that this has been years and years in the works, and studies have been done and they've been tabled, and then we got a committee together that first met in 2017. The effort was then put forward through appointments at my desk and approved by the City Council to encourage community involvement. There was a community survey that was conducted. More than 2,000 of those surveys were handed in. So, yeah, we did hear from a handful of members of the public tonight, some of which not pleased with the projects going forward. But there were many, many others. And while we may not have seen a lot of young people here tonight, I can promise you that in those 2,200 some odd survey results that were conducted online, electronically, and that we received, and we took in all of that input, and I think you could see that young people filled that out because the number one thing on that list was to see an expansion in the children's services in the library. So, we often hear from our residents, whether it's at council meetings or on the street, we need to listen to our taxpayers. We need to listen to our residents. 2,200 people told us, we want to see expanded services in the children's library. We want to see expanded services for our teens. We want to see something that's brighter, that has more services, that has more technology. They told us that. So shame on us if we don't listen. To what extent we listen is going to be up to the city council as we continue to vet these options. But what is in front of us is something that answers the question and the needs to the more than 2,000 people that reached out to us and said, please do something. And here's what we want. They told us what they wanted to, and we have the opportunity to do that. And it was brought up this evening, and it's a quote that I've been using the last several weeks when people have come to me and asked me what I thought about this library renovation budget and the fact that, no one uses the library, right? So the thing I've said back to them was something I heard tonight, and that was people who don't use the library think that no one goes to the library. So it's absolutely true. To understand what the needs are of the library, who utilize the library, you need to go to the library and be active in the library. With those comments, and Karen, I want to again congratulate you on a career well served and dedication to our community. I emailed her the other day, and I said, "Oh, look at this! Must be an exciting time for you." And she said, "The most exciting time in my career," and it happens right in the last couple of weeks. And hopefully, it's one you'll remember for the rest of your life. And thank you for everything you've done for us. And I urge the Finance Committee to approve the third option. Thank you.
Councilor Brunei.
Through the chair to Karen Rossler, has there been any consideration, I know it was mentioned a little bit about just simply shutting it down so we can get this project done faster and more timely?
I don't think we've considered it, the committee hasn't considered it. I do know from my experience in Wallingford before the last renovation, that was certainly an option. And when it went out to bid, that was an additional cost. If you phase it, how much more is it going to cost us? Was separated out. We, at the time, in Wallingford, we couldn't find a space that we could move out of and do business from, but that's certainly worth looking into at any point because those options are available, and then it can go a lot faster if you're moved out.
Yeah, it seems like a great opportunity to build up some suspense, when you have a grand opening. I don't think any services are,
Yeah, it's true.
that vital, or you're going to,
grand openings
die
are
or
a lot
something
better.
if you're not at the library. Another one is maybe to the finance director more possibly. Okay, there's $200,000 built into option 3 for the building. Now, if you went to option 2, can that $200,000 be used to bring down the cost of option 2 without purchasing the building?
You want? Of that funding that was available, I guess was kind of directed, but my understanding is to go towards that purchase. I would have to leave it up to the library board to make a decision at that stage if that didn't take place.
That's technically not the city's money at this point, so it wouldn't be our decision. It would be the library board's decision as to the application of those funds.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it just makes sense if they're going to invest $200,000 one way or the other to have a partnership in it, not just simply to expand, because I'm not in favor of expanding the footprint in any way. I mean, here's a building that's been there for 50 years. We have a community that's the same population. It's served us well for 50 years, that footprint. Obviously, there's some adjustments that are needed and some renovations. But spending anything further for expansion, I'm not going to be in favor of. I mean, even if it's $1.5 million, we just sat around about having summer camp that would pay for a summer camp for the kids for the next 30 years. I mean, there's $1.5 million. And if you want to talk programs, because we've talked programs, I don't know how many times I've heard that word mentioned tonight. But I mean, it's $1.5 million less, still is $1.5 million less. And the usage, I mean, I don't know. I'm just looking at the phone usage, but common sense, I would say. We're back in an era 20 years ago where any teacher would have a assignment for the class, everybody has to go to the library, everybody has to do this assignment. They don't do that now. They have a laptop, they go home to do this assignment that they once upon a time were instructed to go there. So when I look at those things, I mean, usage has to be down, it's just common sense, and it, you know, the data is. So it's another, I would say, a point as far as no need for expansion. If anything, option 2 would probably be a much better option. That's why I was asking about the potential for $200,000 to be shifted, possibly to defray some of that cost on that end. Those are just some of the highlights or points. I'm really tired, so I'm burnt. Anyways, I'll save the rest for Monday. Maybe I'll be amped up.
Councilor Batista.
I'm freezing. Okay. A few things. I don't know where to begin. First of all, the library, as everyone knows, is not your grandmother's library, which would be me. And it's not what it used to be, not what it was when I was around. And when I was around, and Walt knows, and it's been said before, the library was located in more than one location, children at one place, adults at another. I sent my kids to the library. That's how they got through school. They had to go to the library, the encyclopedias, they didn't have cell phones, not my kids. So that's what the library was, and it did fit the need. Though we've had this and it's served our purpose, I don't agree with that statement. I don't believe the library has served its purpose over all these years. I believe that lately it's been unable to serve its purpose. And I know for a fact, because I deal with families so much and so often, and I'm going to bring something else up, I know for a fact that families go to Wallingford. No, we're not Wallingford, and I'm glad we're not, but they go to Wallingford and use that library. And they said to me, I wish our library was better. We are looking at a lot of money. And even when I had first conversations about this, I'm like, no way, 9.3, no. But then I looked at all the details, because I was like really in the middle on this one. Looking at the details, you can see either we do what's needed or we don't. We could go halfway, that's an option. But for me, down the road, that's not a good option, because then we'll be back here again looking for the things that we didn't do and having them done, paying more in interest, because right now, what's the interest rate on the bond, if I may, through you, Brian, to Mike?
I had estimated it
Like
at 4%.
We'd be paying more than that. Our bonding, like the city manager mentioned earlier, we have a great rating. And so I look at that. Then I look at the fact, when I'm doing my shopping at home, yes, I compare different things. So, for example, we are looking at renovating our deck. This is a $10,000 cost. $12,000 it's $10,000 on the highest person, then it's like 9 and 8. Okay, so I said to my husband, and people in the audience always like to use, what would you do at home? I'm telling you. So my husband and I look at the cost, we had them come, tell us what they're gonna do. One of the decking materials, and I'm getting to a point, is an inch thick. The others are a little bit less. And of course, the inch thick one is more. So you compare the cost, but you also compare what you want and what you need. And my husband, and he's like this, I gotta have the 1 inch. I'm like, and he does not like spending money. I said, well, then you just have to accept the fact that's the most expensive one. You either want it or you don't. And we're not rich. But I know this much. If he goes for the one that's less than an inch, I'll hear about it every day. I'll hear about it. He'll go on that deck and say, this feels a little, I'll hear about it. And we're talking about a lot of money for us. It is. Another $1,000, $2,000 is a lot of money for us. But looking at long term, number one, because council must always keep that in mind, long term. And number two, what is it? What's the use of it? What do you need it for? Are you going to have to go back to the drawing board in a few years and pay more? And yeah, you will, because that's been my experience in everything I've ever purchased. When my husband wants to postpone it, I'm like, John, we're going to pay another $3,000 if we wait. And that is what happens. And that's what will happen with us as well. Now, I'm also going to say to you this. I'm seeing the change in the library, and this may sound different than what's been said tonight. Although there's been, of course, in the past few years, a major uptick and an upswing in use of cell phones and use of laptops and going digital, I believe that that's going to go down, and I'm going to tell you why. Because studies and research are already coming out saying that our children don't know how to have social interaction. This is bad. That's a bad thing. I'm not saying cell phones are bad. I'm saying it's a balance. And the balance I see with the library is having both. The books, because me, I always have to have the book. I don't like reading on a cell phone. And I'm a senior. Oh well. But the books and the digital. So you're not going to take it away, but I'm telling you there's going to be a downswing on that. Because these kids are growing up with problems. They'll also be growing up with physical problems, and they've already demonstrated that. They're also coming up with research that says that a child can't, or a child or an adult, can't notice cues from another adult. Because when you're talking with someone, and you do that a lot, and you have interaction, you learn cues, and I think you all know what that is. When you're always like this, you're not looking at a person, so you're not getting cues. And you're also misinterpreting a lot. It's just going to start going down. My opinion, totally. But I have been following the research. So the other thing I want to say is I see the upcoming need for the library in every community. And Councilor Castro and you have gone to all these other libraries and seen that libraries have become a hub. It's not just a place for books so that we can just argue whether you're using your phone or a book, but it isn't just that. It's for families. That's what it is. And for people that, may be alone, not a family. But it's become a hub, and that's what I want to see. And if I'm spending $1 million or decide to spend $9.3 million, that's what I want to see my money spent on. The programs I run are family programs, and I've said this before in council meetings, but sorry, can't help it because it fits. So the programs I run are for families, and these families have from babies to grade 5 in a class, in a school. My programs are in 2 elementary schools, Barry and Franklin. This money is state money. It's a state grant that I get, 2 grants actually. I never get enough money from the state, nobody does. So I'm always trying to figure out what can I do to save money. What I want to see for the future for the library and continuing on for Meriden is that there be an even greater collaboration of services in Meriden. Collaboration was used a few times tonight, and that's my point. So for me and my grant, I finally thought to myself, heck, and Karen knows this, I think I'm going to go to the library and have one of my programs at the library. We run Raising Readers at the library, which is for, quote, my families, but we had people that were at the library starting to go into that program that we were running. So it was no cost to the library, no cost to me, but a great collaboration and expansion of library users without us even trying. Then we ran a parenting program there. Parenting, which costs me money to run. So this collaboration makes me use the state money I'm given in a better and more efficient way. So we also, and Karen knows this, I have monthly meetings at the library. And again, to repeat what the mayor said, hang in there, Walt, to repeat what the mayor said, that, I forgot what it was, but I have monthly meetings there as I'm president of this Family Resource Center Alliance statewide. The state, all these individuals that run all these state programs like mine, we meet at the library once a month. And that's just a little thing. So people that don't go to the library and think it's just books are missing everything. Quite frankly, they really are. And I think even those that go to the library and think they know the library don't really know what's happening there. So here's my final thing. I'll remember that, Councilor Shamik. I think that's rude. I think that's very rude. I have my opinion. Yeah, that's right, it is. Thank you. So, it's all personal is right. So here's my thinking is, I'm leaning more towards the 9.3 million. And the reason is, I want to see the collaboration effort even better. That's not personal, that's professional opinion on how things work and how to spend money. I want to see donations. I want to see people like the Kiwanis have already donated to our old library, and I'm sure there's organizations that would be willing to donate and name rooms after them and give money. And I want to see that, and I think we'll get that. And I want us to continue seeking other grants. I know that was a concern of another counselor, so I do want to see that as well, and I'm sure we will. I'm sure we will. So that's all I said, and it wasn't all personal. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, so I'll just give my comments briefly just to address a couple of the things. We do need to have a legislative decision in order to apply for the grant. So the deadline of filing for the grant is August 31, and so a decision does have to be made before that date. The second thing is, as the mayor said, we've had tons of public input. Thousands of people have given us public input. And from the public comment tonight, from the informational hearings we've had, from the surveys we've had, from the Board of Education, from the Economic Development Director, from the Friends of the Library, I can't think of a project that we've looked at in the years I've been on that has had such widespread support from every angle of our community, whether it be the seniors or whether it be the parents. There have been very few people that have spoken out against this. The Record Journal's got an online poll. 63% of the people that have responded are in favor of the addition option. Another 12% say, well, if you're not going to do that, do the second option. So 75% of the people responding to that poll have said you got to do one of the top two. When we talk about the cost, and I appreciate the comments of Councilor Shammack and Councilor Carabetta and Councilor Williams, TSKP will tell you, Karen will tell you, Joan will tell you, whoever else was on our library committee will tell you. Councilor Jelks and I have been doing nothing except expressing concern over the cost of the project for the last year and a half. Nothing but that. We probably sounded like a broken record, but we said, we got to get this thing down. We're not doing a Cadillac. We're making a Chevy as good as we can for what this community needs and what it deserves. So we took the windows out. If you look at the addition option, we didn't have the bookmobile. We didn't have the Friends of the Library. We didn't do the whole second floor because it was balanced against, okay, the addition makes such a big difference in this project that we're going to cut those other things out. So there has been nothing but effort to keep this cost down as we've gone through this process. I appreciate the questions of Councilor Shammack on the interest. We have worked tremendously hard over the 12 years I've been on the council, I can't speak before that, to improve our bond rating. We've been funding our pensions. We've been borrowing half of what we've paid down the year before. We've been sticking to the CIP cap. We've gotten our reserves up to the recommended amounts. We've done the other things that our auditors have said are fiscally responsible and need to be done. We've gotten one award after the next, every single year for our fiscal management. Every councilor and the mayor gets the report as to our policies and our management, and it's been excellent. And because of that, we borrowed at the high schools, I think, at 3%, and now we're still able to borrow at 4%. So the interest is there. It has a huge impact, but it has a huge impact if you have to borrow at 7% rather than 4%. We've done everything we can to position ourselves to really be able to borrow at the lowest rates that we can for big projects. We just approved the CIP plan for the last year. And so one of those items was we needed a new snow front-end loader, $300,000. Nobody in this room said, well, that's just the cost of it, but you're bonding it, so someone please tell me what the cost is over 20 years. We know there's interest over 20 years. That's true of every single thing, whether it's a front-end loader, whether it's a sidewalk, whether it's a road, whether it's anything we vote on the CIP. And we fully appreciate that, and we address that by getting our bond ratings up so our borrowing costs are low. So those figures are always there. So when I look at projects, whether it's the CIP we look at every year under our cap or these, you got to look at the principal and you got to look at the net cost. And so when we talk about the Harbor Brook flood control. I think it was $7 million. But we had something like, or it was $8 million, but we got $7 million of state grant to do it. So what was the project cost to us? $1 million. We weren't looking at it as an $8 million project anymore. And that took properties out of the floodplain. That's Factory H. That's going to pop and so on. This project, people keep saying it's 9.3. This resolution is conditioned on getting the $1 million of the state grant. It's an $8.3 million project is with the addition. If you don't do the addition, it's 6.8. The difference is $1.5 million. That's like one really long road in the city. And I got to tell you, Mr. Hall, at least on this perspective that I'm talking about now, when his public comment said it right on, hit the nail right on the head. He goes, you got to look at the thing that's going to get you the most bang for your buck. We're not going from 6.8 million to 20.8 million. It's 6.8 to 8.3. In 5 years, 10 years, the day after we finish it, I don't want the public looking back saying to the city council, you nickeled and dimed it. You were penny wise and pound foolish. You're telling me for another $1.5 million you didn't put on the addition we needed? This building's going to last us 100 years. It is the most used building, but it's not used in the same way that the high schools, with kids trumping in and out and sports equipment and everything else. With reasonable maintenance, I don't see this renovation ever having to be done again, certainly in my lifetime or my kid's lifetime and maybe my grandkids' lifetime if I have some. So for $1.5 million, you got to look at what you're getting. And I do not want anyone looking at me saying, Brian, geez, you know, that should have been an easy decision. The public demand was there to do one of the top two. I think there's general consensus among counselors from the comments I've heard tonight that one of those top two is really the choices. We've heard the roof's got to get fixed in any event. The electrical's out of shape in any event. The air conditioning's out of shape in any event. So what are you going to do those things in any event and then say, okay, what's the incremental cost to do it right if we've got to do all of that other stuff? You know, to have the light through the back, to have the corridor that goes through for safety reasons, for appearance reasons, to have a place for the teens to go. You know, we always talked about, and this was one of my comments at the last school building committee, we often hear people say, it starts at home. If kids should have an education, if they should know how to behave themselves, if they should have social skills, that's got to start at home. Well, the people that are starting at home, they need resources. If they just sit at home in their own house or their own apartment, not everybody has an iPad. Not everybody has the internet. Not everybody has an i10 phone. You know, you've got to recognize that we have a very diverse community. We're a blue-collar community. We're 62,000 people. And you can't always judge it by kind of the circle some of us walk in where everybody's got a phone. Everyone's got an iPad. Of course everyone does it. Well, it's not true. It's not, of course. And so the library is one of those major, major resources, especially where our library is located. Downtown, by the green, by the housing, in downtown Meriden, where the demand is greatest. This is a resource for those families to then do exactly what everybody says they should be doing. Put it on the families, take some responsibility, you know, get your kids out there, get them reading, get them active, get them to learn how to behave in social settings. You know, the teens are no different. They need things to do as well. People constantly say, you don't have a teen center in Meriden. It's been a demand, as Councilor Castro said, when we did the choice neighborhood stuff, they did the studies. That was one of the greatest demands. And we basically give money to the Boys and Girls Club and the Y and some other organization, Girls Inc., to do our job for us. But this is still a demand that is never going away. And it's been documented in the last couple of years. So to me, I went into the school building committee, the library building committee thinking, okay, I got to keep these costs down. I know something's got to get done. But when you look at just the basic things that you have to do, it's got to be ADA compliant. You have to do the bathrooms. You've got to do the electrical. You got to do the roof. You got to do the HVAC. Okay, when you get done with all that, you know, you're not talking about a lot of stuff that's optional. One of the options here is, do we put the addition on? And it works out well. The property that we're looking at next door is an eyesore. It's being foreclosed, someone's in bankruptcy, no one's living there, it's boarded up. I mean, we get to solve a lot of issues. We don't have swing space. It gets the project done faster. I agree with Councilor Brunet's suggestion, following up on Karen's. You know, whether it can all be done at once requires looking at, do we have a place in the city where we can, for a year, temporarily move the library? All those things can be thought out and looked at over the course of the next year as we think through it, whether they become bid options or whatnot. So I think all of the comments here tonight were spot on. I think all of the concerns are things that we need to look at as we go through the process, as we go through the bidding process. There are things that can be out there, but with the type of across-the-board support for the additional $1.5 million to do what I would say is to do the project right, as Mr. Hall said, it just seems to me that that's the decision that we should be going with, and that's why I'll be supporting that decision. But I can understand the concerns. I think they're all legitimate, and I think, have done everything we can to try to address those concerns. So, with that having been said, we have the motion we have the resolution as amended on the floor.
May I speak before the...
Yes, Councilor Shamrock.
Through the chair, thank you, Brian. You know, there's been a lot of discussion here this evening. It's on. Doesn't work. That's my luck, right, Brian?
Or our luck.
No, I was just going to comment. You know, there's been a lot of discussion about Phase 1, Phase 2, and Phase 3. Yes, I'm not in favor of Phase 3, but I want to just make something explicitly clear. Nobody can take a back seat to Meriden. How many cities like Meriden have 2 new high schools, going to renovate part of the golf course, put an airport hangar in, did the green? It's not. We spend a lot of money, we spend it wisely. The only thing I'm saying, and I'm trying to put across, is if I have my house and I'm looking for an addition, and 3 contractors come in, and I might forget something, I might get something less, but I don't go with the highest. I never do, and I never will. I'm just saying that if we can save something, I'd like to, look, I'm not against the library. It needs renovations. It needs, I like the library. I have nothing against the library. But I'm just being fiscally responsible. Why can't we just go with Phase 1 or Phase 2? And I'd be very happy with that. I just can't see going with the highest cost. On this finance, I've been on it for almost 30 years. We always seem to take the highest road. And sometimes it pays off and sometimes it doesn't. But Meriden can't take a back seat to anybody what we accomplished in this city. So I just wanted to say that, Brian.
Is it really important? All right. Karen?
I think that Brian will agree that when you say we're picking the highest option, you have to realize that the committee looked at much higher options for our community over the last 2 years, and we said we have to be reasonable and respectful for our community. So this was the compromise. This is not, as I said, the Taj Mahal. This has already been whittled down to what we felt was a really good option for our community.
And that's essentially what I was going to follow up on, Walt, was the committee could have come in and said, okay, we've got 4 options, 5.3, 6.8, 8.3, or 15 million. And that was what whatever study group did it in 2005 before I got on at 15 million. And we said, no, we squeezed and squeezed and squeezed the architects on getting stuff down, on taking it out. So what Karen said is absolutely spot on, and anyone on the committee will confirm it. This is not meant to come and say, here's the Taj Mahal. The Taj Mahal was thrown out a long time ago at the committee level. The Cadillacs were thrown out a long time ago at the committee level. This is what we think. The bottom one, even though Randall has suggested that's the minimum to make it a viable project, my opinion is that's not a viable project. I wouldn't even bother doing the minimum one. You're talking about one of the top 2, and for the price differential, that's what I think meets the needs of the city. But it is important for people to understand that there has been a lot of work. It's in all the minutes. All the meetings were public. We've had public informational sessions. We have done a lot of work to get rid of the Taj Mahals and the Cadillacs because we fully appreciate the concerns raised. We have them the same as everyone else does. So I just want certainly the public to understand that as well. All right, so with that having been said, we have a resolution as amended on the floor. Seeing nothing else, we have the Finance Committee tonight. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, it's 3-2. All right, moving on to the next resolution, which is item number 10 of 7119. I'm sorry, item number 11 of 7119, resolution regarding authorization to purchase the property. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
So there's a motion and a second. This is the resolution that deals with using the $200,000 that the library board has authorized to use of their money to purchase and demolish the Catlin Street property if this addition option does go forward. I think that that's an easy thing, but we need to have the resolution approved so that we can use that money if we end up going forward. So does anyone have any questions on that? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 4-1. Going to item number 3 on the agenda, which is item number 4, which is item 12 of 7/1/19, a resolution regarding amendment to GPIB number 76, library renovation, $9,300,000. Do I have a motion to approve?
So move.
Is there a second? Second. Okay, so there's a motion and a second. This is simply the bonding resolution for the addition option that was just approved a few moments ago. Are there any questions? All right, there's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay, 3-2. And then the last resolution we have here is item number 13 of 7/1/19, which is the resolution authorizing the city manager to apply for the state grant for the public library construction. Do I have a motion to approve?
So move.
Is there a second? Okay. So arguably, this would apply if for some reason the option changed at the end, but obviously this is what the application requires, is some legislative directive authorizing the city manager to sign the application and submit it. Are there any questions? All right, being no questions, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 5-0. Okay, there's an item on the table, but that's going to stay there because that's essentially outdated, and that's going to die in committee. With all of that, I would really appreciate everyone's patience and time, especially Counselor Shamix. All the people that came and spoke tonight, and the public who came and spoke
Thank
and
you.
stayed here for the night. These are big decisions for the city, and they need to be well thought out.
Make a
And
motion to
participation is appreciated. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So
Is
move.
there a second? All in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Walter, I'll talk to you.